As we continue our journey through Islamic history and doctrine, the goal is still to analyze whether the actions of ISIS are in fact Islamic. So far, we know that in the very least, the connections between their actions and their way of life, which is really a culture of death, are in fact heavily influenced by the life of Muhammad and the early Islamic era. But today we get our hands a little more sticky. I'm sure, like me, you've seen the horrors of ISIS violence, their women slave trading, ethnic cleansing, and so on and so forth. But this moment is dedicated to finding out whether their specific tactics and methods of torture are indeed rooted in Islamic tradition. They relish in their creative ways to torture infidels, Christians, Yazidis, and other non-Islamic peoples. By the way, the non-Islamic cultures in Iraq and Syria are on the verge of extinction. So if you're like me, you remember some of those videos of people being executed in mass, women being sold into slavery, shrines being destroyed. And the Islamic State has been killing people for cursing Allah or insulting Muhammad. Now this is a heavy video, but we have to talk about it. Because within the Islamic narrative, and specifically in the life of Muhammad, there are a few reasons that validate torture. Number one is to get information from someone. Number two, to punish criminals. And number three, we'll see that it's for flat-out revenge. I remind you of that poetess, remember Qurfa? She was killed because of her poetry against Muhammad. She was an old woman, and the executioner appointed by Zayd, who by the way was appointed by Muhammad, quote, tied each of her legs to a rope, and then they whipped the camels, and the camels split her body in two. I mean, it's not hard to imagine the screams that are coming from Qurfa at this moment. We know from the Islamic sources that she created poetry against Muhammad. So I have a question for Muhammad. If you're going to kill her, why would you have to torture her, right? Surah 5:33 says this: those who wage war against Allah and His Messenger and strive to spread corruption in the land should be punished by death, by crucifixion, or have the amputation of an alternative hand and foot, or just get rid of them, banish them from the land. This was intended, according to this verse, to be a disgrace for them. So they would live the rest of their lives with a symbol of disgrace. And then not to mention the punishment in the hereafter. Now let's be real, okay? People die every single year in war, and people get killed because of self-defense. And in most cases, self-defending is justified, right? But here's my issue with this. The definition in that verse, spreading corruption in the land, it's listed in there, and that's like saying something like this in the Western world. States will condemn a man for first-degree murder, right? First-degree murder or unethical behavior. Well, we know what first-degree murder is, but who's to define what unethical means, or in this case, corruption? The meaning is simply too broad, and the Islamic State knows this. Islamic sources themselves leave it so vague that the Islamic State can actually use this verse without issue because it's left for anyone to fill in the blank. However, like we did before in the other videos, remember WWJD? Well, again, WWMD. What would Muhammad do? Thankfully, Dari, Ibn Ishaq, Al-Bukhari are very informed on what Muhammad did. So here's what the respected Muslim historians and scholars said. Bukhari's book of Jihad tells us the context of why this verse came down. So listen to this. Surah 5 verse 33, okay? There were Arab tribesmen who visited Muhammad, and at some point they converted to Islam. Somewhere in that mix they got very sick, and Muhammad told them to follow a shepherd outside of the city, and he offered them as a solution for their sickness an old wives' tale. I'm not making this up, by the way. He told them to drink the milk and the urine of a camel, and you'll feel better. Ironically, they are reported to have felt better, according to those sources, but for some reason, they killed the shepherd. Maybe they were greedy, maybe they wanted his camels, maybe they wanted his flock, but they killed the shepherd and left Islam, and they took all of the flock for themselves. When this news reached Muhammad, he ordered them to be hunted down and brought before him. He decreed that their hand and feet be cut off. Then he ordered, now again, I'm not making this up, metal nails to be heated, and the tribesmen were tortured by having their eyes branded, and they were left in the desert. When they asked for water, they said no. No water was given to them. Eventually, they finally died. So what does Allah think about this? Well, you'll be surprised to know He approved it by revealing to Muhammad, Surah 533. So it was revealed to Muhammad, and it's supposed to be a confirmation to Muhammad's decision. So now, not only does Muhammad torture them, now Allah adds to the torturous duties crucifixion. Now, I could understand if Caesar or the emperor or anyone political or, a king crucifies people. But God to crucify people, it's too far-fetched for me to imagine. So I leave you with this epic question. Think about it, ponder it, and don't let the political correctness in the West change your opinion. Answer this question for yourself. Is ISIS Islamic? Because when I look at it, I see a direct connection between ISIS and Muhammad.